Hey, it's good to have you back in the rig as we head down the road. When I say good to have you back in the rig, I'm just assuming that you've been watching this show for a while. But if you are seeing it for the first time, absolutely enjoying this. The opportunity to just get to visit with you on a different medium and get to share some things that are going on out there in the world. And there's a lot. There's a lot right now. We're going to hit what happened in South Dakota with the Attorney General. We're going to talk about what's happening in North Dakota with Luke Simons, and we're going to talk about how the word is out and the documents are out. We're going to get to that a little bit later about sexual harassment. But before we do that, somebody made national news yesterday with his show, and he's got a radio show as well called Afternoons Live with Tyler Axness, and that radio show really got to the heart and soul of what happened with the Attorney General in South Dakota. And then we brought him in right now. Tyler Axness, good to have you back coming down the road.
Joel, always a pleasure to be on the show with you here.
Now, first off, let's lay out what happened in South Dakota before we talk about the call that you got into your show.
Well, yeah, for those, because it's been a few months now, it's been a lengthy investigation as to what happened, but there was an event in South Dakota in which the Attorney General was at, and it was a political fundraiser. Later on that evening, driving back home, he struck what at the time he said, well, he thought it was a deer, and tragically it was a man walking alongside the road who earlier that evening had gone off the road and struck a hay bale. But it wasn't until that next day in which they discovered that it was in fact a human being who had died that was alongside the road. So that's what the setup is, and now after all these months of an investigation that was done by North Dakota officials, which I think is important for listeners or watchers to keep in mind, because you have the chief law enforcement officer of South Dakota involved in a vehicular accident that left a man dead. So North Dakota takes over the investigation. We find out a lot more details this week that had us talking, and it's led to Governor Kristi Noem calling for his resignation. He says he's not going anywhere, and that led to, I believe it was on Tuesday, the Republican supermajority in the South Dakota House filing articles of impeachment against the Attorney General.
I'm not trying to diminish that life. We're going to get to that in just a second, and the connection that obviously that life has, like any of us, to their family and the loss that they've suffered. But have you ever hit a deer?
I've been involved. I've been in a vehicle when a deer has struck the car, yes.
And I've hit a deer.
Yeah.
And whenever I hit a deer, I checked to see about the deer, whether or not I had to put it down, whether or not, I can't possibly imagine how there's a confusion over whether or not the Attorney General hit a deer.
Well, and now that some of this has been come to light, it even raises more questions as to whether or not that claim carries any weight, because you can see the vehicle, the Attorney General's vehicle. You can see where the accident was, and it was extensive damage enough to where a sheriff says, you know what, we'll lend you a vehicle because you're not going to be driving this. At the very least, you're going to be inspecting your own vehicle to the extent of the damage, and then also finding where whatever it is that you struck is. And whether it was a deer, it turns out in this case, tragically, it was a human being. There's just the timeline, the questions, they're going to continue being asked whether or not the Attorney General is still in that position or whether or not he does, in fact, get impeached.
Now, we've both had a lot of people call into our show and surprise us. I mean, we have. We reach a broad audience, and every now and then it's like, whoa, obviously they were listening. Yeah. You had that happen to you yesterday.
I did. I did the other day talking about this, and I was simply asking the audience whether or not you think that the Attorney General should resign, or if you were one of those members in the House, would you vote to impeach the Attorney General because of what we now know? And we'll get to that in a little bit, but a caller called in unprompted, identified as the cousin of the victim, the one who was called to identify the body.
Not a lined-up guest or
Not a lined-up. Called in because they were listening to the show. And that's one to where it sets you back. In fact, even talking about it now still gives you kind of goosebumps, because you could hear the pain still in Victor's voice. And in fact, I know that we've got some of that here, because in his own words of describing, we covered everything from that night, the next day in which he had to go identify his cousin, whether or not he supports the resignation, the impeachment. It was all on the table. And in fact, I think we should probably get to the first clip in which Victor calls in to my radio show here on the eastern side of North Dakota, and talks about that accident that took his cousin's life. So let's go with that clip one here.
I am one of the cousins of the victim. I am the person that identified his body. I am the person that the victim called that night. He told me that he had accidentally driven his pickup in the ditch and bumped into a big round bale that was in the ditch. This is on Highway 14 in South Dakota, kind of in the center of the state. He said he had gotten distracted while reaching for his tobacco and ended up in the ditch. His pickup the front bumper was pushed in onto the wheel on the passenger side, so it was at the moment undrivable. So I drove in to pick him up, and I gave him a ride back into Highmore. It was just a couple miles back into his house. And I sat there and talked with him for 20 minutes or so, and then I left. And then it was later on that evening, he decided to walk out to his pickup. And why he decided to do that, I don't know. But it was on his way back into Highmore that he was run over by the Attorney General. And the crash report says this. He was well over onto the shoulder. He was about as far away from the driving lane as you can get and still be on the shoulder and not in the ditch. So he wasn't out in the middle of the road like some other reports that I've seen have said. He was completely over as far as he could on the shoulder, walking, facing the traffic, and carrying a light. When the Attorney General struck my cousin, the Attorney General was actually driving completely on the shoulder. And to this day, we still have no reason as to why he was on the shoulder, why the Attorney General was on the shoulder.
Victor, the investigation now having seemingly concluded, you've got 3 misdemeanor charges. Your thoughts on that as being a cousin of the victim here?
Well, of course I'm disappointed. Evidently, South Dakota has laws that in car pedestrian crashes almost always favor the car and not the pedestrian. Evidently in South Dakota, if no one sees you run over someone, you just can get away with it. Now, the Attorney General also said in different reports that he didn't know what he hit. Then he was also saying that he thought he hit a deer. But you can easily find photos of the Attorney General's car online, and you can clearly see in these photos that the passenger side of the front windshield is smashed in, and there's a hole about 1.5 feet around in it. That is the hole where my cousin's body slammed into the windshield. Now, if you're driving a car and something as big as a human being or a deer crashes into the windshield, in my opinion, you know what it was. He's saying he didn't know what he hit. But if there's a human body being flung onto your windshield while you're driving, it seems like you would probably know what you hit.
Victor, there's been some questions that have been thrown in about Attorney General then continued on his way and called the sheriff. And what's your recounting of, this investigation? Once the sheriff got involved, they went out, and then I assume, was it that sheriff that called you to come out and identify your cousin?
It was a highway patrolman that called me to identify my cousin. And I didn't receive the call to identify my cousin until nearly 24 hours after my cousin was hit and killed. My cousin's body stayed out on the edge of the road all night.
I go back to the scenario that I gave Tyler earlier, which is, first off, I think his cousin's right. You know what you hit when you hit it, Tyler. You do.
Well, and especially you saw the damage. You saw that it was a windshield. You hear that there was a flashlight involved, and we've heard other reports, people saying that flashlight was still on the next day, which means that flashlight was still on that night if the Attorney General got out and did in fact look to find what he had hit. But the thing that stands out to me in Victor, the cousin's call into my radio program was that windshield. That's where my cousin's body went in to the car. And we find out now, and I know we've got a video clip because, again, North Dakota law enforcement did the investigation. And after that phone call that night, we learned that the glasses of the victim were, in fact, in the passenger side of the car. And in fact, let's play that clip and take a look at this.
Did you see the glasses right next to that?
I did not.
Okay.
You showed me the glasses the first time. The first time.
They're glasses.
I wondered about that.
So that means his face came through your windshield. It's a tough thing.
Oh. I was thinking that his face did not come through because there would have been I thought there'd been blood everywhere then. Now, after I've thought about it.
Yeah, and you've had time.
Right.
His glasses are right there, Jason. Those are.
I did not see the glasses until you showed it.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Oh.
So the only way for them to get there is through the windshield. At the impact, did you look over and see anything?
I did not see anything. I mean, it was, again, I then was looking to get to the side. I did not see anything.
As you said, North Dakota doing that investigation, but claims he didn't see the glasses.
Yeah. Which leads, he didn't see him, and apparently the sheriff that allowed him to take another vehicle that looked over, saw the extensive damage was there, didn't notice them either, apparently. Just so many questions left in this, Joel, and I know that there's 3 misdemeanor charges, and this has, I think, people wondering whether or not South Dakota needs to change their vehicular laws.
Which they do.
Which they absolutely do. The fact that they're about to wrap up a legislative session and hadn't considered this until now it's too late is baffling to me as well. Just tragic. And you've got an individual that's staying in office saying he's not going anywhere. And I know in just a little bit here we're going to be talking about what happens now, because there's been a lot that's been revealed now within the last, and there's going to be more according to the governor.
And when we come back, folks, we're going to get an opportunity to talk about just that. There's a lot of pressure on the Attorney General of South Dakota, Jason, I should say, Ravnsborg, to quit, to resign. In fact, the governor herself has come out, Governor Nome, and said, you know what? It's time for you to resign. We'll talk about that when we come back as we head down the road.
Respect, innovation, trust, and excellence. These core values can be seen in every building built by Straightway Construction. In the community for over 15 years, Straightway Construction has become the premier construction company for commercial projects. From dirt to design and framing to finish, Straightway Construction is your #1 choice. You won't have to look far to find a project that has that Straightway touch. Call them today or go online to straightwayconstruction.com and let them make your vision a reality.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
There's nothing more important than family. And at Prairie Rose Family Dentists, we get it. That's why we have more locations, more dentists, specialists, extended hours, pediatric clinics, and even emergency appointments, so you can always be seen. Book your appointment today at prairierosedentist.com. Prairie Rose Family Dentists. We are family.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
Pub 21, your one stop for fun, drinks, and food. Our spacious facility provides COVID-safe fun for you and all your friends. With nightly bingo and specials, you can be sure there's something to do for everyone. If you're staying in for the night, we've got you covered just across the way with Pub 21 Liquor. We have a wide variety of options, from wine to whiskey and everything in between. Stop in today at 1014 South 12th Street in Bismarck to see what all the buzz is about. You won't be disappointed.
Good to see you staying with us as we head down the road. We're visiting with Tyler Axness, and we're visiting with him about an interview that he did on the radio a couple of days ago in relation to the South Dakota Attorney General, Jason Ravnsborg, about the Attorney General hit somebody. He hit somebody. He's claiming it's a deer. The investigation kind of leaves you questioning whether or not that's the truth. The glasses of the victim found in the passenger seat, or in the car itself, I should say, of the Attorney General. There's a lot of calls for him to quit. A lot of calls for him to quit, including the governor herself, Governor Kristi Noem. That's where we're at in all this, Tyler.
That is. And as we're having this conversation, Governor Noem has, as you said, called for his resignation. He's since said, no, I'm not going anywhere. You've got the House of Representatives offering articles of impeachment, and now today they're saying within the next 48 hours more is going to be released on this investigation, more materials, which I've got questions as to why they're piecemealing what's coming out when and why the process is playing out the way it is. But we are to that point where you've got people from both political parties, all sides of the aisle. In fact, the Libertarian Party in South Dakota also calling for the Attorney General's resignation, which is what led to the conversation that we were having on the airwaves, and which is what led Victor to call in when I'm discussing should he resign, should he be voted out through the legislature, which would be the first time in South Dakota history. And I asked Victor that. And in fact, take a listen to what Victor said when I asked, should he resign, should he be impeached? Tell me your thoughts on that. And this is what Victor had to say.
He should have resigned just within a day after it happened. I don't know how you can perform your duties as Attorney General with that case hanging over his head for as many months as this has gone on. As far as the boys in Pierre trying to impeach him, they're just doing that to cover their butts. I mean, that way the next election cycle, when it comes around, they can say that they were tough, demanding that he step down or impeaching him. And I believe that's what the governor is doing, too. She wants him to resign or wants him to be impeached so it looks better for her in the next election cycle. Otherwise, they would be all for him staying if it wasn't for the optics of it. South Dakota is well known across the nation as one of the more corrupt states in the union. And also, this is just another opinion of mine. Now, remember, this is an opinion. I believe the governor, she gets to a point. If he resigns or is impeached, she gets to appoint an attorney general. And I believe she is looking for someone who is going to be absolutely tough on the marijuana bill right now.
And I think that's a legitimate question to ask. Number one, the governor of South Dakota has huge political ambitions. Number two, the governor has not supported the will of the people of South Dakota when they voted in the marijuana law. And so picking your own attorney general can't hurt that. The current attorney general, who is in so much trouble right now, Jason Ravnsborg, is someone who has, well, he's challenged the governor on the fact that by law, South Dakotans have passed this. It doesn't change the fact that everybody is calling for his resignation, Tyler.
Well, and rightfully so. I'm one of those that believes that the Attorney General should resign. And if I were in that legislature, I would vote to impeach because of things that we now know. The investigation's played out. We're going to learn more about what the investigation found within the next 48 hours is what we know now. But back to Victor's phone call saying, you know what, the Attorney General should have resigned that next day once he knew that it was an individual, a victim that he had killed alongside the road. And I think back to the fact that this is a public office. People can think that it's not fair, but it's just the reality. If you're elected or if you're in public service, you are setting a higher standard, or you're held to a higher standard, you know, because people say tragic accidents happen all the time. They do. But in this case, you are the law enforcement officer, the highest ranking law enforcement officer in the entire state. You've got to have some self-reflection and say, look, because of this, I can no longer perform the duties of which I've been tasked and have the confidence of the state. So he's got to resign, Joel.
You know, we talked about the weak laws in South Dakota and what he can and can't be charged with, but there's civil laws as well. I mean, what risk does he have? And if he's out as South Dakota Attorney General, I mean, do you think South Dakota is liable for some of this?
Well, I mean, you can understand the emotion and the frustration with the family about the misdemeanor charges. You know, saying that this doesn't go far enough. And I know that in other states you've got manslaughter, vehicular harm. I mean, there are other means of which to make this this incident to where you've got the proper justice with it. If this family's not thinking that justice was served, I would not be shocked to see if, in fact, he is no longer in office, that there's further steps taken from the family of the victim to seek more justice than I think what was allowed under current state law down there.
So, you know, there's a lot of people who believe that, you know, the Attorney General is just hanging on in there because of his relationship with Governor Nome. To me, you know, I go back to what you just said a little bit ago. He is the chief law enforcement officer in the state of North Dakota. Or South Dakota, I should say. Whatever you believe, whether you believe he knew, whether you believe he didn't know, I don't think he can do his job after this.
No, and not be able to do the duties with the confidence of the public. You know, that's the important piece, I think, here is you're right when you say that nearly everyone is calling for his resignation. I haven't had anybody say, well, you know what, he should stay on the job. Yeah. So you've lost the confidence of the public, you've lost the confidence of the governor, you've lost the confidence of the legislature. There's no one on the side of the Attorney General staying on in his current role.
There's one other thing that just drives me nuts about this. I should say, too, we know now that the flashlight was on. We know it was on. In the dead of a road in the middle of a South Dakota night, you notice a flashlight.
Right.
You notice a flashlight, number one. Number two, you don't know. I don't know. No one knows whether or not after that crash that ended up being a fatal crash, whether or not he was alive.
Yeah.
Whether or not by the side of the road he was laying there and still could have had a chance at life. We don't know that.
We don't. And that's what, when Victor called in and prompted to my radio show the other day, the thing that stuck with me when he made the comment that my cousin's body was on the side of the road overnight.
Yeah. Tyler, I know you got to head out, but I want to ask you this. Luke Simons, state representative from Dickinson, it's all been exposed, a lot of sexual harassment there. Yeah. Open records brought a lot of that to light. We're going to talk about it a little bit in the show. Should he resign?
Well, I mean, the facts and the claims and everything that's been laid out certainly indicate that there should be something done, whether it's through the Ethics Commission that we all approved. I haven't seen them weigh in yet. The House Majority Leadership certainly hasn't done the job to hold him accountable. So should he resign and take it upon himself? Perhaps. I don't think he's going to. But yes, it's something that should be seriously considered.
He voted against funding the Ethics Commission, the very body that needs to investigate him now.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. I can't figure out what's going on in Bismarck. And really, Chet Pollard, the leader of the Republicans in the House, needs to step in and do his job.
There's no
as well.
question. No question.
When we come back, we're going to talk about just that. Josh Boschee is going to join us. He is the minority leader of the North Dakota House. Stick around. We're going to keep going down the road.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
It's every American's right to bear arms. At Mandan Sporting Goods, we're here to help you support your Second Amendment rights, which reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Whether you're looking for a pistol for personal defense or collector gun, we have the staff to help you. We also have the area's largest inventory of ammo and reloading supplies.
Mandan Sporting Goods, the area's local gun and ammo specialists.
Beck Communications is hiring. Beck Communications is seeking qualified candidates for plant technicians in our Wheatland, North Dakota location. Beck Communications is an equal opportunity employer. To view the job details, visit www.beck.coop. To apply, email your cover letter and resume to careers@bechtel.coop. Beck Communications, making connections that matter.
If you're a Beck Fiber customer or the dependent of a Beck Fiber customer, you might qualify for scholarships. Beck awards scholarships to seniors headed to college or to students attending University of Mary. Go to www.beck.coop for eligibility guidelines and applications.
The experienced professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless, and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Did you know the Foundation for Rural Service awards scholarships for rural students? The scholarships range from $2,500 to $7,000. Go to www.frs.org for information and applications.
You know, I never thought that I'd be happy that one legislator used the F word on another legislator. I didn't. I never thought I'd be happy about that. That one bully, that's too easy of a word. One jerk from Western North Dakota, Luke Simons, actually used the F word on another legislator when she asked him just to put his mask on. That's all she asked. Put his mask on in an area where he was required to wear his mask. And I could tell you exactly what he said, but you don't want to hear it here on Beck TV. Now, that prompted many of us in the media to do an open records request on just what type of individual this is. Because if he did it there, obviously he's been doing other things. And so we asked House Minority Leader Josh Boschee to join us. Representative Boschee, good to have you back coming down the road with us.
Thanks, Joel. Always good to be on. I wish we were talking about something different, but these things need to be addressed.
Luke Simons is from Dickinson, and there's a lot of people in the media talking about how he's a Bastiat caucus member. And for those of you who don't know what that is, look it up, because I don't like talking about it. Here's where he's a caucus member. He's a Republican caucus member. He went out and he's in Dickinson. He's a rancher from out there. And, you know, if you're an R in Dickinson, you win an election. What we find out now is that through a lot of documents, Josh, he has been sexually harassing and threatening employees at the Capitol. Have you had a chance to review these?
Just actually within the last hour and a half, was able to read through the file, and it's infuriating that our staff have to put up with this type of behavior by anybody, much less someone who's elected to represent a district.
I want to make sure that people out there watching Beck TV have an opportunity to know what's being said here. They go back as late as February. Well, I'm going to go back to actually 2020, 2018. We can go back a long ways here. But when you look at what's happening, you're going to find threats. You're going to find a number of issues. In fact, take a look at this, one of the first documents we have to show. Now, in that document, what you're going to find is, he's expressing to a woman working at Legislative Council that, he visited her in the office. He leaned over her desk, made a remark about her eyelashes. That interim Judiciary Committee, Representative Simons approached her while he was sitting in a chair and began to give her a shoulder massage. Josh, she made it perfectly clear she wasn't comfortable with that. I can't possibly imagine a state representative feeling he could do that.
Yeah, it's a state representative or any person. I mean, this behavior is not appropriate in any work setting, any public space or private space. I mean, this is not how we treat one another. And as you said, this has gone back for a while. And, in each of the cases, the individuals involved have asked for it to just be a conversation. They didn't. You're familiar with Legislative Council. I mean, those staff have to walk a fine line, and it's unfortunate that I think they are fearful of potential pushback from legislators. But, it's time for us as the legislature to hold our members accountable. This type of behavior for anyone, much less our staff who have to come to work every day right now in the middle of a pandemic and deal with a bunch of us who aren't wearing masks. But then, someone goes hands-on with them or comments about their children or, their looks, and it's not appropriate and it needs to stop.
And I want to go on. I want to pull up another clip because there's plenty of examples of all of this. There really are. And they go back as early as 18, and they go on to actually current right now. Take a look at this clip that was in the file that Open Records took a look at. So what you're going to find there, and I want to point this out, he stopped to visit and discuss her resolution. He stated when, not if it happens again, she intends to let Representative Simons know his comments or actions are not appropriate. And that was the only recourse that she had, was to go to her boss, John Bjornson, and say, I made him aware. Is that the process? So people understand of what the only option that she had, Josh.
Well, she did. She went to her supervisor and they addressed the situation with the majority leader, from what I understand. And at that time, that's all the employee asked to have done. We do have a workplace safety and harassment policy that, Senator Kathy Hogan really helped lead with 2 interims ago. And so the employees certainly could have accessed that. But, I think in some of these cases, we look around and we see that these are individual cases with different individuals. It's not the same individual every time. And there's comments in there about, Representative Simons not being able to be alone with female staff or even engaging with female staff. And, in talking with John Bjornson and Representative Pollard, the majority leader, I think it's time that we look at the next steps and what our options are to hold him accountable.
Representative, there are accounts in the documents that we could show our viewers right now that, they're going to be uncomfortable hearing. They're going to be uncomfortable seeing. But I'm not sure if we don't share them or if we don't talk about them, that, it's not going to get fixed. Or it's just going to be, swept under the rug. Scott Lauser came out, and he's the assistant majority leader, and said, look, that's just the way ranchers talk. That's just the way it is in Western North Dakota, which, quite frankly, I found disgusting. I know a lot of ranchers, and I know a lot of ranchers that would never, ever do this. But, when you're sitting there and you're Luke Simons, he was at a Victoria's Secret talking to one of the staff about how, quite frankly, his wife wears certain kinds of panties, and even actually going so far as saying he does, and then saying, no, that was just a joke. I mean, how more inappropriate can you get, Representative?
You can't. And you know, again, this is why we need to put an end to this behavior. You know, and the ball's in Representative Simon's court. It's clear that there have been conversations after each one of these incidences. And what happened this last week at the Capitol, you know, was another isolated incident, but it has shown that there is a track record that that Representative Simons has of treating women inappropriately. And you know, you said, like you said, I agree. There are people who work in agriculture, farmers, ranchers, that would be offended by the statement that this is just how ranchers are, because they have daughters, they have wives, they have mothers, just like all of us. And that, we wouldn't want any of our family or loved ones to be treated that way.
You know, I can show you more instances. I can show you ones where, and actually there's been discussions about, hey, sit here and I'll rub your hair, and you got to have your hair cut a certain way or else you look a certain ethnicity. I mean, he's gone that far as that. You know, but here's the thing. As if that wasn't troubling enough, he came up and he threatened that these individuals would be fired. He's using the power of his office to intimidate the head of the Legislative Council and these employees that work for him, to try to send the signal that if they don't be quiet, if they don't shut up, he's going to make sure they get fired. How do you deal with that? What do you do when you go to Chet Pollard, your counterpart, who's in the majority and the head of the Republicans?
Well, fortunately, none of us have the individual power to fire. I mean, certainly those threats were made and completely inappropriate. But, you know, the staff are independent and they're under the work of John Bjornson and legislative management. So, you know, those threats don't, I guess I'm not trying to make light of threats, but fortunately we don't have the power to fire the staff as individual legislators. So, and I think the staff know that, but certainly concerned about what that means for their, you know, workload and other things that they interact with us. You know, I'm just kind of out of words, Joel, as you continued, you know, as you read through some of those statements again, because I just can't believe this is happening. I can't believe we're having these conversations. You know, Representative Pollard and I have talked a lot over the last couple of days, and now that all this information is in front of us, you know, I think he and I are both looking at, again, what are the options available? How do we hold a member accountable for treating people we work with every day like this? It's
what actions are you going to take? One of your caucus members and your employees, one of the great people or number of the great people that you get a chance to work with as a legislator, have been sexually harassed. They've been physically harassed. These individuals have had their jobs threatened. I mean, what is the Democratic caucus, who, by the way, we're told to blank off, what does the Democratic caucus do about this? What does the Dem NPL do?
Yeah, well, we have three options. I mean, there's the workplace harassment policy that was enacted a couple of years ago. So following that process, there's also the opportunity to have articles of censorship drawn up and then have the entire chamber have this discussion and vote to hold him accountable through censoring. And there might be a removal of committees or other sanctions as part of that. And then the third option is expulsion, and that would require 2/3 of the vote of the House. And I can tell you all three of those paths are being discussed by a number of legislators, Republican and Democrat. I mean, this is embarrassing for the Republican caucus, and they know that, and many of them don't want our staff treated this way. And so they are being very serious about what way we go. And as far as us as the Democratic caucus, we're having conversations. This is all fresh in the last few hours, the specifics of the examples. But I can tell you I've had conversations with both Representative Pollard and John Bjornson about what would the censorship process or censoring process look like, and what would we need to do to get that started.
On my radio show, I invited him to come on. I sent him an email last night when all this information was coming out, and obviously we made an open records request, and we got this information. We're the first ones to broadcast that across the state. I want to say this, though. He didn't come on. He didn't accept. He didn't come on. He went on Facebook, and he went on Facebook Live to say it's all a lie and it's not me. There's document after document here from many different sources of exactly what happened. And I have to say this as well. Leader Boschee, this man, this individual that did this is an individual who was given up by Republicans in the House. They've had it with him. Do you get the sense that that's the case?
Absolutely. You know, with us wrapping up the first half, everyone's on the floor together. And really one of the only things we have to focus on when we're not voting was these conversations. So there have been a number of my Republican colleagues who have come up to myself, come up to the Assistant Minority Leader, Elisa Mitzcog, and a number of our caucus members saying enough's enough. You know, this is a culmination of behavior. If he lashes out at our colleagues this way, and now there's documentation of how he's treated staff, again, none of us want our staff to feel that way or to have those experiences when they come to work. They can go a lot of places and make a lot more money, but they are dedicated to the democratic process in our state, and they're courageous and heroes for it, and we need to stand up for them.
If he gets sued civilly and the individual is successful that sues him, who pays the tab? Who pays that bill?
Well, it'd be him. I mean, we don't have any liability insurance as legislators or any protections by the Attorney General through that. I mean, this was, well, certainly in his capacity as a legislator, it was his individual actions. And as far as I understand, that would be out of his own pocketbook.
I hope you're right, because it's going to happen. Representative, good to have you coming down the road with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joel, and enjoy crossover.
I bet you're going to. When we come back, we'll go over some more of this. You need to know, you deserve to know what this Republican from Dickinson has done. Stick around. More coming your way as we head down the road.
Howdy, folks. It's a Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our hay-bossing breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at a salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon-rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the game. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Respect, innovation, trust, and excellence. These core values can be seen in every building built by Straightway Construction. In the community for over 15 years, Straightway Construction has become the premier construction company for commercial projects. From dirt to design and framing to finish, Straightway Construction is your #1 choice. You won't have to look far to find a project that has that Straightway touch. Call them today or go online to straightwayconstruction.com and let them make your vision a reality.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
Did you know the Foundation for Rural Service awards scholarships for rural students? The scholarships range from $2,500 to $7,000. Go to www.frs.org for information and applications. If you're a Beck Fiber customer or the dependent of a Beck Fiber customer, you might qualify for scholarships. Beck awards scholarships to seniors headed to college or to students attending University of Mary. Go to www.beck.coop for eligibility guidelines and applications.
We're talking about a problem that the Republican caucus in the North Dakota House has, and actually the whole state of North Dakota has, because one of the individuals that has a say in our state policy is Representative Luke Simons from Dickinson, North Dakota. And this is the type of representative he is. I want to give you an example. Let's go to Thursday, March 14th of 2019. Now, understand the complaints that were filed by these individuals that he pressed upon women in the Legislative Council and in other places. These individuals, these very individuals have not been running to the media. This was found out because he started talking about, listen, F you. There. That's what he did. You can draw the rest of it in there. But I want to go to something that you're going to see here. Representative Simons in this March 14th document goes about, and I'm not going to paraphrase. I'm going to point back to what he says. I want to let you know that Representative Luke Simons recently visited my office. He was going to see about Senate Bill 2344. She called me and I said, okay, send him back, meaning the person at the front desk. I did not recall whether or not he was still restricted from visiting female staff members. I asked my son. Her son is in the office now. Understand that. I asked my son to leave the office, but Representative Simons introduced himself to my son before he was able to leave. Representative Simons then asked me for an explanation of the bill. I walked him through it. He asked some questions about the bill, but throughout the meeting, he made some disturbing comments. For example, at one point, he slid of his papers across my desk, told me the stain on it was chocolate ice cream, and told me I could lick it and sniff it. I know you don't want to hear that, but you know what? She didn't want to hear that. Lick it and sniff it. At another point, he told me, I don't need laws because I follow the Bible. And then said it would be really bad if he was driving his car and ran over my son. I'll let that sink in just a little bit longer. Her son is in the room if he ran over her son. Now, obviously, this, it was inappropriate. She goes on in there to point out it's inappropriate. I want to go to November of 2018 as another example. He's talking about, let's just go over this. He said on Tuesday, November 13th, Representative Luke Simon visited my office. Upon entry, I said, I apologize for the papers on my desk and proceeded to clean them up. Now, understand those papers were confidential with other legislators, right? He said, you always apologize. I recently attended a seminar on personalities and people watching. I noticed you always say that you have to clear your desk. I said, we maintain attorney-client relationships with all legislators, so it's important that I ensure everything and is to put away as necessary. During a discussion about, and you can see the code there, Chapter 36-21.2, that's the Century Code, the following exchange occurred. He said, what does immunity from liability mean? If you were in a car accident and I came upon the scene and you were lying on the side of the road, if I took your shirt off to administer aid to a wound, I wouldn't be guilty of sexual harassment. I said, that's an inappropriate example. He said, oh yeah, I took it too far. The discussion continued relating to livestock. He said, the call was about a thoroughbred horse in the ditch. You know, thoroughbreds. They just have that hungry look in their eyes, like some women. Quarter horses are bred to be sweet and kind and made for the job, kind of like my wife. She is definitely like a quarter horse, but she has a little thoroughbred in her. He again said, sorry if I got off topic. I don't know where to go with this. Let's go to March 21st of 2018. I'm going to get down to the incidents that were reported by this attorney in the Legislative Council. And I'm going to get to the third bullet as you see it on March 21st, 2018. And she cites example after example, but the one right down to where he was sitting in her chair and began to give her a shoulder massage. Here's another point. Representative Simons called on her regarding a work matter and proceeded to tell her a long story about shopping for thongs at Victoria's Secret because that's what his wife likes to wear. He apparently, jokingly, added that he wears thongs also. He told the story in the context that he was approached by mall security at a shopping center in Montana because he was carrying a weapon. Here's the most well, not the most disturbing one, but I'm going to go to February 25th of 2020. Now, understand this. Representative Lauser, Scott Lauser, is a leader in the Republican caucus. And he came up to discuss the Commerce Committee's agenda and some bill drafts. He also asked me how things have been with Representative Simons. Now, he's talking to John Bjornson, the head of the Legislative Council. I said, I don't think Representative Simons has been in our office since the session. I said he had access to our services, but to my knowledge, he has not used them lately. Representative Lauers then said he thinks Representative Simons is harmless, naive, and just from the ranch. I do not agree with this assessment. He said to Representative Pollard, the leader now, has tasked him with dealing with Representative Simon's situation and characterization communications to tell Representative Simons basically to grow up. He's just from the ranch? I mean, harmless, naive? You tell that to the women in that office. You tell that to them, that they sat there in that office field threatened so much that he isn't even allowed in their offices anymore. He's not allowed to be around women anymore. And he proved it all by what he said in that lunchroom. We wouldn't have got this without that. We wouldn't have known about this without that. We all started doing open records in the media because we found out just what kind of person he is. We never thought we'd find this. The Ethics Committee needs to have the power to deal with him. The House Republicans need to deal with him. And the people of Dickinson, North Dakota, need to deal with him. I'll come back with some closing comments as we head down the road.
There's nothing more important than family. And at Prairie Rose Family Dentists, we get it. That's why we have more locations, more dentists, specialists, extended hours, pediatric clinics, and even emergency appointments, so you can always be seen. Book your appointment today at prairierosedentist.com. Prairie Rose Family Dentists. We are family.
Deciding how to promote your business can be hard. Visit the professionals at Dakota Promotions and Printing and let them help you through your struggle. Dakota Promotions provides promotional items and apparel, from corporate gifts to team shirts and everything in between. With quick turnaround times and friendly service, they are your best choice. And best yet, you're shopping local. Visit them online at dakotapromo.com or stop in their showroom at 320 West Main in Mandan. Dakota Promotions, delivering promotions just for you.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather, like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
It's every American's right to bear arms. At Mandan Sporting Goods, we're here to help you support your Second Amendment rights, which reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Whether you're looking for a pistol for personal defense or collector gun, we have the staff to help you. We also have the area's largest inventory of ammo and reloading supplies.
Mandan Sporting Goods, the area's local gun and ammo specialists.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Kohler Samurai and the innovative BRT Renegade, as well as the best-built, best-backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
It's the last little bit of our trip together as we've headed down the road today. I do want to tell you this. Accountability matters. Accountability matters. We've talked about Luke Simons. We've talked about this representative from Dickinson. You've heard me say Dickinson a lot, and you've heard me say Republican a lot. The reason I've done that is because of accountability. The Republican caucus knows who this man is. They know who he is. They know what type of human being he is. And simply sitting there, if you're in leadership and saying that's just Western North Dakota, that's just how ranchers act and behave. There's a lot of ranchers watching right now. Is that how you behave? Yep, I agree. You don't. That isn't how you behave. Leadership knew about this and they didn't deal with it. And they have to deal with it because he is a Republican and he is from the Republican caucus. And you know what? Dickinson deserved to be mentioned as well. Dickinson voted this man in on a 3-1 margin. And you know why they did? They did because he had the right letter behind his name. That's why they did. They did because he had that R behind his name. This is a man who objectifies women. This is a man who physically assaults women. This is a man who verbally threatens a woman's child. This is a man who verbally threatens women's jobs. Do you really want him representing you? If you're Dickinson, is that the man you want to be the face of Dickinson? Huh? Is that the man you want to send to Bismarck to make our laws? There's always been questions about his ranching. There's always been questions about his dedication to his cattle and whether or not they're being fed. You know what? That's his life, his business, and unfortunate for those critters, if any of what I'm hearing is true. But he has no right to do that to women. And this has got to get solved. Chet Pollard, deal with it. It's been good riding with you.